All right, today we're here on the Sludge Factory podcast, and we have a very special guest sitting in with us. He's an interesting guy, and we wanted to give him an opportunity to talk about some of his ideas and some of his thoughts. He has been involved in some television projects, some movie projects. He's a writer, he's a screenwriter, and most recently he's been honored by the Las Vegas Film Festival for one of his recent, the Nevada Film Festival. And he's going to talk today a little bit about that project that won him that award. He's kind of a strange guy, but he's got some great ideas and some entertaining thoughts. So let's bring him in. Mr. Victor Greywolf. Victor, how are you? Thanks for being here today.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're up to now? What are your projects that you're working on currently?
Well, besides getting a restraining order against you,
Okay.
okay, I'm working on. Let's see, I'm going to go to Iowa hopefully sometime next month to film a movie. I mean, I have to look at locations in Iowa and just take a picture of them, come back. I'm planning to film in Iowa, so for all of you people out there in Iowa, just keep an eye out.
And can you talk to us a little bit about your films? Can you tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, the film that won you the prestigious award from the Nevada Film Festival?
Are
Can
you
you tell us?
talking about the one in 2009 or 2010?
Let's talk about the most recent one from 2010.
2010 was a documentary called A Day in the Life. That was the only title that I could think of at the time. Somebody told me, though, that it was somebody else had it, but I haven't seen any proof of that yet. But yeah, I mean, I just thought about it. How I got it was based on a suggestion from a message board where somebody said, why don't you just do a day in your life? It was in 2005 when I was having a lot of problems just trying to get a sitcom pilot off. But the funniest thing is, like, right after that, other projects that I had seemed to succeed.
And going back to a day in the life, your project that won you this award, can you talk to us a little bit about? Is it your life? Are we getting a
Yes,
glimpse into a day of your life?
it was more of a glimpse on moments of my life.
Okay.
There were some moments, though, that couldn't be filmed because the person duplicator said there was just too much footage and he didn't like a lot of it, so we had to work with what we had. It was recently sent out to Wisconsin, and it's going to be sent to Iowa, ironically. But it was sent to other states because it was filmed in Indiana. There was one part in Indiana, that, ironically also in Iowa. There was a small bit in Wyoming and in Nevada where I was filming a bit. But all in all, it was pretty good. It was just like my life because it was the easiest by budget standards. If I had to follow an actor, it would take a lot of money, a lot of time, and just something that we just couldn't have pulled off. So it was the best that I could do by budget standards, nothing more.
And do you also kind of appreciate the fact that you were kind of able to make it about yourself, make your art about your own personal experience?
Well, believe it or not, it wasn't my first idea.
Okay.
My first idea was just to do a sitcom pilot and just send it out and then just see where that one would go. But due to a lot of actors in Chicago, it just was, how can I put this? It was very difficult to pull off. I was very green in the business, and I guess, when you have a lot of greenness and you don't know what to do and you couldn't get a lot of facilities, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty.
Okay. Well, take us back, Victor. When did you get started into writing sitcom pilots and writing the scripts for movies?
Well, people always told me that I was a great writer, so I just did it. I mean, I wanted to do something in my life. The films that I was writing at first were just kind of like inspired by dreams that I had or movies that I have seen, and let's see what else. Oh, yes. And also just things that I encountered in my daily life, whether it would be like school. As a matter of fact, the script that I wrote in 1988 was inspired by my time as a freshman and all that, and a dream that was inspired by the video games Teddy Boy and Space Harrier, which created a script that I'm going to be sending to Nevada in this year, hopefully, since they said they accept scripts. All film festivals in general accept scripts. Mm-hmm. So I just said, why not? Why not just send it?
And can you talk a little bit about what went into those projects? You know, you talked about some of your personal experiences and some of your dream interpretation, which often goes into a lot of creative work. Any particular moments that stand out as something very special that you were able to capture?
No.
Okay.
Except for just that one with that inspired that science fiction script, but outside of that, nothing.
Well, you certainly do. Aside from your work in film and in television, you are pretty outspoken. You seem to have you're very opinionated on certain topics.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the most pressing topics right now. Let's starting with the economy. Of course, everybody it seems to be a hot button topic that everybody wants to talk about. You know, everybody's having to scrimp and save. We don't know when we're going to get out of this recession. People are losing jobs. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I believe that a lot of it is due to the internet, for one thing. You know, people just don't want to get off their freaking asses. They just want to sit over there and watching it go up to the point where it makes an elephant look like Katie. Who was that? That anorexic model?
Kate Moss?
Yes, Kate Moss. Yeah.
Not a fan of Kate Moss, are you?
I'm not a fan of any celebrity. And furthermore, also, it's because a lot of these kids, you know, like come over there and they vandalize and then they steal, thinking like, you know, I'm getting something, when in reality, you know, they're just hurting people and stuff like that. And they're hurting the economy because we have to spend so much blasted money on trying to help these people when in reality they just don't want any help.
And why specifically do you blame a lot of that on the internet?
Well, because the internet is taking away a lot of jobs. You know, people don't want to travel. Stores are going out of business. Some people say, yeah, you know, the economy is improving because of the internet. No, it isn't. There are people that are having to work minimum wage jobs. They work for considerably less than what they're supposed to, and the taxes are going up. Nobody wants to deal with that because of the situation in the Middle East with the oil. I mean, you know, why deal with those people? Or sub-people, if you want to call them that.
And what do you think of the current government administration? Do you think that they're being helpful in any of that, or do you think they're just making matters worse?
They're fucking things up royally.
How so?
Raising taxes, you know, trying to make themselves look like humanitarians when in reality all they give a shit about is the high almighty dollar. They don't really, you know, want to help people. They just only want a big fat paycheck for themselves. While in reality, you know, people have to struggle to make ends meet. And it's not just limited to that. It's also limited to the fact that some people out there, you know, just don't want to work. They just want the people that work to support them. You know, while they just sit on their fucking asses all day, you know, not contributing anything, just stealing and vandalizing. You know, is this supposed to be good for the economy? No. They don't want to learn. Many of them, you know, do try to learn, but unfortunately they get held back by a lot of discrimination and stuff. I mean, I'm hopeful, though, that they will try to improve themselves, but as Bill Cosby said, you know, with education, what the hell good is education if nobody wants it? It's true. Nobody wants it most of the time. So if they don't want it, why give it to them? You know, it's just like trying to give a dog cat food. It's not going to want it. So what good is it to have it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, do you think there's anything that we can do as people to make that a little bit more attractive?
Well, I mean, the first thing that you have to do is get people away from the rappers and the gangs and stuff like that. They start the gangs because they're forced into it or because, you know, life is down. Of course, life is down and life is sad. I mean, have you ever met somebody who was so happy saying life is good? Come on. I mean, you know, they're doing drugs. That's not helping people. They're going around getting girls pregnant and abandoning them when they do. I mean, what the hell are these people thinking? It's like, you know, what's happening right now in Memphis, Tennessee, in a high school. There are 90% pregnancies in there, and that's because nobody really wants to teach these kids, that you're supposed to wear a condom, number one, and you're supposed to keep it out of the birth canal.
Right, right.
These people have a mentality like you're in the fucking Salem trials.
Sure. Now you touched on an interesting topic there. The pregnancy rate, of course, is skyrocketing amongst underage people in this country. What are your thoughts as far as abortion goes? How do you feel that abortion should be looked at by underage people who are being promiscuous?
Well, if people want to have a kid, you know what? Just have them babysit kids and then get a feel for it. First of all, but as far as abortions, I say more abortions. More fucking abortions.
So you're definitely not a person who thinks that all life is valuable.
I would say if you're not ready to have a kid, you know what? Don't let some guy put his fucking dick inside you and shoot his cum inside your pussy. Keep it out of the goddamn birth canal. Put it underneath like they do in the porno films.
Well,
that's what I'm going to say. Next time you people want to have a fucking kid, either be sure that you're ready for it, or you know what? Get your tubes tied and get him a vasectomy.
Strong words.
They're not strong words because nobody's going to follow that. They're just going to think that I'm just some loudmouth. That's the truth. Look at what's happening. You people out there, like this district attorney said, any teacher who says that abstinence doesn't work will be sued. You know what? That guy's a fucking moron.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's a lot about that's specifically as a lot about who you are. Your outspokenness. I mean, you're a strong believer in the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, and why is that so important to you? Why do you believe so strongly that people have the right to project whatever thought they might have?
Because if not, then it's a hypocrisy.
Right.
I mean, you see people all the time telling you that, you have freedom of speech. I mean, I'm okay with freedom of speech, but I mean, they have to be limits. But if people, many times with a lot of topics, they're kind of like ostriches hiding their heads in the sand. I mean,
and that angers you.
Well, it doesn't really anger me, but it just upsets me when they say, like they have the do as I say, not as I do mentality.
Sure.
I mean, take for example, a lot of parents, tell their kids don't smoke, but guess who's doing it? A lot of government officials say, stay faithful to your spouses, but look who's cheating. Same as with executives. I mean, there have been a lot of corporate executives that usually have, mostly male, would have like a little girl on the side, so that way they can get their sexual things out of the way and they claim, yeah, I'm faithful to my wife and all that. I mean, we've all seen somebody like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in the First Amendment because you know what? Everybody wants to say something, but very few people will have the guts, or if you want to get a little fruity, the balls, to say it. I mean, I don't have anything against the LGBT community, but it's just somebody needed to say it.
Sure. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about your feelings about religion. That's kind of a big topic, too. Do you think that religious people kind of get in the way of, some of the progress that you're hoping to see?
Do you even have to ask? Of course they do. Look at the stupid bastard Fred Phelps of the Westboro Baptist Church. He protests, like, the Laramie Project based on the murder of Matthew Shepard. He protests military funerals for people that are fighting for not only my First Amendment rights, but his First Amendment. He says, yeah, I'm covered by the First Amendment. I would say you should shove that thing right up your ass. Make it into a dildo and shove it up his ass is what he should do. Because of it's the way that he acts, I mean, he says, yeah, I have my right to push this and all that. But unfortunately, what he does is abuses that thing, saying that, the victims' families, they have rights too. But I do believe in the First Amendment, yes.
Right.
But just, I don't believe in things like protesting military funerals and stuff. But generally, religious people are the cause of the problem. I mean, think about it. People want to learn sex education to prevent all these pregnancies, but that's an example. But unfortunately, they don't want them to learn. They want them to be like, as I stated earlier, with the ostrichen, it's burying its head in the sand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
And do you think that maybe, if religious people, and then when I say religious people, I mean religious extremist type people who are a little bit off the wall, so to speak. Do you think if they were maybe a little bit more accepting of some of these other ideas and other opinions of people who may not necessarily agree with what they believe in religiously, but for the most part still stand for truth and morality? I mean, do you think that would, maybe help us become a better society?
Well, that's kind of a difficult one to answer because, number one, a lot of religious people, like those religious extremists, they're very intolerant, they're very abusive people. They hate anybody who's different from them. Like, take, for example, the minister in Georgia that was preaching against homosexuality, or like Reverend Ted Haggard that preached against it, and they turned out to be that way. It seems like they have a grudge against themselves. I mean, excuse me. The religious extremists, they're the ones who are telling people that they should hate those kinds of people, but many of them are. It's kind of like you're hating yourself because you're something that you can't help. What they should do, in my opinion, in all honesty, is try to say, well, you know what, people have a right to be who they are. I don't know where they get this thing, like homosexuality is bad, because as far as I remember when I did read the Bible had tons of stories on homosexuality and pedophilia and all that. And people seem to embrace that, but they can't embrace homosexuality itself. I personally am straight. But, I mean, I think that homosexuals should have rights as well as lesbians and all the other groups. But those groups don't. And they say you're supposed to tolerate others, but they don't practice that. They just, as I stated earlier, just the do as I say, not as I do mentality.
Very interesting. Very interesting. There's some other topics that I wanted to talk about. First of all, in the last couple of years, we've had a rash of school shootings all across the country. There's been Virginia Tech. There was the Columbine massacre many years ago. We had a Northern Illinois shooting not too far from here. What are your thoughts on violence on college campuses?
I kind of have a bit of mixed feelings about that. I mean, they say that, the main problem of it was being bullied in the college campuses, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. I mean, like, take the Virginia Tech gunman, for example. People were saying, they didn't see any evidence of him being picked on and persecuted. There was no evidence of that. But something snapped inside. I mean, sometimes a trauma, goes so far.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on some of those things that maybe made some of those kids snap? I mean, obviously, you talk a lot about that in some of your thoughts and some of your writings. Why do you think some of those kids were set over the edge?
That's a very good question. I mean, it could have been rejection, like what they said as I stated, with the Virginia Tech gunman, that he might have been rejected by a woman one too many times, and he just snapped. Well, yeah, that could be a possibility. So in reality, who was it the one that started the shooting? Was it him or was it her? Because sometimes you have to wonder. It takes two people. One person to have something and one person to reject it. Now, could the Virginia Tech gunman's first victim actually have started it, or was she just a victim? That's kind of an interesting question.
That's very interesting. It goes both ways. It's like, yeah, he was the one who pulled the trigger, but who gave him the gun? You know what I mean?
Well, we all know who gave him the gun.
Right. But, I mean, metaphorically speaking, it's like there's only so much torment some of these kids can take before they're bound to snap, What do you think something that kids can do to maybe, or not kids, I shouldn't say, young people and people in general, what can they do to kind of project that elsewhere?
That's a very good question. I think that one thing that does it is separatism and cliques.
Okay.
Like, say, for example, high school. High school, everybody has a clique. Like, the football players
Sure.
and the cheerleaders are usually at the top. and then you have like the drama crowd, then you have the people that are like the honor students and the rejects, you have the loners, you have the hoodlums, and then you have the losers and the losers of the losers.
Sure.
What they should do, number one, is one school that I read did, I don't remember exactly where. I think it was in South Dakota, but I'm not sure, so please, whoever's listening, do not quote me on that. They should try to, number one, just get rid of that. Don't have sports, or have sports, but just have it where anybody can get in. Don't try to single people out, because I think that is what, with the stories that I read with Eric and Dylan, that is partially what made them snap, because these guys tried to fit in.
You're talking about the Columbine?
Columbine.
Okay.
And they couldn't. I mean, no matter how hard they tried, they got pushed around by everybody, because many of the jocks thought, hey, I'm this big jock and I can push you around. That's why I have very mixed feelings about that, because I knew people that went through that too. And I kind of went through that as well, but not on the same level as them.
Sure.
So that's why I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I'm glad that the victimizers, the ones who did it, got what they deserved. But as far as the others that had nothing to do with it, it just kind of makes you feel bad.
Sure.
So a lot of people, have developed societies from that. But not because of the shootings, but because of what they did in the name of the shooting. As in saying, we were bullied and picked on, and now we finally got even with the pricks that did it.
Mm-hmm.
If people had looked at that, which apparently the people who built the societies on the web did, then maybe people wouldn't have felt so angry at them.
Sure.
But I could be wrong.
Right. Now, talking about the school shootings, I mean, Columbine especially stood out as a kind of a landmark event, not only because of the sheer violence of what happened, but also because it was a time when we started seeing people point fingers. People were scared, they were upset, they didn't know what in the world could have possibly caused this terrible thing to happen, and we started seeing people blame things like music and violent video games and television. How do you feel? I mean, you've been outspoken about that. Obviously, that's not something you agree with, but how do you feel about that? Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, the video games, they did look into the Virginia Tech gunman, and there was no evidence of that. So, I mean, I remember this attorney, Jack Thomas, I think was his name. He was one of the outspoken opponents of violent video games, but they said, like, Stephen Kazmierzak, the Northern Illinois University shooter, didn't play video games. So there's kind of a disagreement about that, in the sense that, well, I've known guys, I myself have played violent video games, and I'm perfectly sane. There are some people out there that can't handle that, but it's the person that has their mind so blurred between what is fantasy and what is reality, that it's the person that can't tell the difference. It's not the video game, it's the person. I mean, if people don't want that, I mean, hey, parents are just so lazy. They just make a kid and they think that the kid is going to take care of itself. They don't have to do anything. Wrong. Now, as far as pointing fingers with music, well, Jacob Robida said that he was doing something like that, or was inspired by it, but a band that he claimed inspired him said that we had nothing to do with this. Well, people can point fingers to whoever, but it's the person that does it. It takes two. It takes one person to put a product out, but it takes another to listen. Now, if parents don't want to monitor their kids, it's a very simple solution. Don't have them. Don't put your kids in front of the TV and the video game systems and the internet and expect them to raise themselves. They're not going to do that. If you cannot take care of your kid, don't have them. But I mean, also, you have to tell your kid, you know what happens in the video games or in music, that's not true. Video games are fantasy. Don't go around doing that. But unfortunately, they don't. They think, okay, we put the ratings on the video games, but, the truth of the matter is, the video games in the 80s had much more violence. The only difference is that we can create new images, and thus with the new images, we can put up more violence.
Sure.
It's just a different way of showing it. I mean, there were some video games out there that would have given kids nightmares because it really got in your face with the technology, but now that we can improve it, the technology is like, hey, we can just show it in a more realistic way. We don't filter it. But that's that's all pointless because parents don't want to listen.
Right.
They just want to be like, okay, I'm going to have my kid raised by the internet or have my kid raised by video games. And then they complain and cry, oh, no, he killed somebody, she killed somebody, did this and that, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? If you didn't want to help your kids, you know what? Don't have them.
All right, some good stuff there, Victor. Let's lighten it up a little bit. Now, you said that earlier. You said you don't like any celebrities.
No.
None whatsoever.
Well, I guess I was kind of misquoted on that. I mean, I like Rodney Dangerfield. I like Marilyn Chambers, the porn star. May she rest in peace. I would say I have more respect for the people in the Triple X industry than I do in the mainstream because, number one, they don't act a lot of times like this humanitarian type. Like take, for example, the lead singer of the band U2. I personally can't stand him.
Bono.
Yeah, I think that's his name. Crying about trying to save the world and stuff like that. It's like, who cares?
Right.
Most of these people out there, you know what? They make you give money to charities, but where does the money really go? 98% of the time, it just goes into some slob's pocket. Or if you try to send it to like the foreign nations like Africa and Asia and parts of Latin America, it doesn't go to the causes. It goes to the dictator, so he can just sit on his ass all day.
Right.
So why should I give my money to somebody who doesn't need it?
Sure. You mentioned Rodney Dangerfield. Was he someone that inspired you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I remember in 1997 I got an email from him. At least I think it was him, where he said, "Hi, Victor. I've seen your guest book entries in your emails here and there. You got a good sense of humor, all right." Yeah, if he told you in an email, somebody represented him told you. I mean, you must have a great sense of humor.
Was who along with Dangerfield inspired you to kind of do what you do?
Laurel and Hardy, Bill Cosby, Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay. Jeff Foxworthy, I think he's pretty funny.
Now, you actually did a little bit of stand-up yourself back in a few years ago.
Yeah, I did. About 11 years ago. No, wait, 12 years ago. I started in June 2nd of 1999. And I stopped on September 25th, 2005. I briefly returned on the day before Thanksgiving, 2006.
And that was primarily around the Chicagoland area?
Yeah. I mean, I did it in Barrington. I did it in, Orland Park. I did it in Chicago, DuPage County mostly, which was Orland Park, Oak Lawn. The clubs went out of business.
Now, you were kind of, at one point, sort of a Sam Kinison figure, going up on stage, ranting, screaming, kind of getting the crowd up. Do you miss those days?
Yes and no. I mean, I kind of miss those days, but, I didn't really get anywhere, and it was like,
So now you're kind of behind the scenes a little bit more in the writing, the creativity.
I also made an album during my stand-up. It was in 2002.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we find that anywhere? Is that something that we can listen to?
Well, I have some copies at home.
Okay.
I had a second album, which was my first 2 CD set, which was recorded in 2004 and 2005, but I'm sad to say that it's no longer made. I mean, if I can find a couple of copies, I will reproduce them, but...
Awesome.
Thank you.
As far as what else, I'm sorry here, just going over my notes. We had a lot of topics that we wanted to cover today, and I know what I wanted to talk about. Your sitcoms that you went into. Can you talk a little bit about what? Tell us about the sitcom.
Well, my first sitcom was called Oswald's Family. That was the very first one I've ever written. You've heard of that one.
Tell us a little bit about it.
It was about a guy who was a male model who one day had his face disfigured in a car accident, and so he had to work in a deli and a candy store, and his life was just completely ruined. So he had 3 daughters that succeeded where he failed, and they had this boyfriend that was just a real loser. It was kind of inspired by... I think about one script that I wrote. I forget the name, but it kind of made me wonder what would have happened if, like, I don't know who was the most famous male model, had lost everything in a car accident, and now he had to marry like Gene Stapleton or something like that. And they had like Brooke Shields and a couple of other models as a daughter. They had like Hugh Hefner in a dog form and Paul Snider. the guy with Dorothy Stratton who killed her. What would it be like if all those people were together? Oh, that would make one hell of a story.
Very, very interesting stuff.
Yes.
Would you say you get most of your inspiration from? Are you a people watcher? Do you read a lot? Where do you get some of your inspirations from?
I get my inspirations from, let's see, movies, TVs, things I've written previously, things that I watch, and stuff like that.
What would you say some of the best things that you watch right now? What's your favorite television series right now?
Well, I like King of the Hill.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
Love King of the Hill.
Me too. I also watched like the Cat House series. And,
Okay.
And let's see, Katie Morgan specials, and
Now you mentioned that you are into adult entertainment. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I'm not really involved in it.
Not involved. How does anyone get involved with
they make their own movies.
Exactly. But I mean, why is that something you not only do you enjoy watching it, but you kind of have a respect and an appreciation for that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I don't know which one will be the best version, but I'll try to give you the one that I feel will be the best. I've tried, to get into like mainstream society, and it just didn't seem to work out for me. And
Porn is very anti-mainstream.
yeah, although some of them do make it into the mainstream, and it seems like those people seem to be a little bit more approachable than the mainstream Hollywood. Mainstream Hollywood just kind of looks at you like, ugh, oh, it's you. And I mean, not all celebrities do that, but 98% of them do. And it's like, why the hell, do I want to be around these kinds of people? You try to. It feels kind of like in high school. You had a crush on the prettiest girl, or if you're a girl, the most handsome man. And it's like, no matter how hard you try, you never met their approval. So you feel like you just had to settle for the gunk. Sometimes the gunk, when you try to get the most fanciest thing, sometimes a gunk can be pretty interesting.
You consider yourself to be an outsider, an outcast?
Yeah.
And that's something you're happy about?
Well, I'm not really happy about it, but sometimes being an outcast or being an outsider can be pretty interesting, because it's like you don't feel like you're programmed.
Sure.
People are putting in ideas into your head. You just think for yourself, and I think that's the problem with society. And that's another hypocrisy that society has, where they say, you're allowed to think and feel however you want. No, you're not. Because every time that you think a certain way, it's like, they tell you it's wrong. Well, if you people tell us it's wrong, why do you say that it's okay to think however you want?
Right.
I mean, does that really make sense? And that leaves kids very upset because they don't know what to think. It's like, I like this, but mommy and daddy or the school or church say it's bad. Well, how do you know it's bad? Because they say so? And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, mommy and daddy do drugs in the house. It's okay? Even though they say it isn't?
Right.
Or mommy and daddy drink and, just go out and do this and that, and they say it's not okay, but for them it is? Give me a break.
Right. That is certainly interesting. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
What is it exactly about me that you would like to know?
Well, we've got a lot of interesting things here that I'd like to go. Let's talk a little bit about. So we talked about film and television. You're a big fan of that. What about music? Do you enjoy music at all?
Not rap music. I mean, what is so great about preaching about gang violence, single mothers getting girls pregnant and abandoning them? It's like, these people over there, they preach violence. It's like what happened with Notorious. He got killed because he preached violence. The old saying, you preach violence, you die by violence.
Sure.
You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Well, that is certainly very true, and we've seen that happen far too often. As far as the artists or musicians that you do get into, is there anybody that you like to listen to? What CD have you? What was the last CD that you listened to?
I can't even. I guess the '80s Mega Mix. But I just also wanted to quickly say, as far as the rappers, I remember that Al Sharpton said that he was going to go to Congress and say that if an artist uses violence to promote their music, that they would take their records off the air for 90 days. There's one thing, though, if he was listening to this, I would wonder, did that ever pull through? Or was he just saying it for publicity? But I would say, as far as music, mostly I like the dance music. I mean, I listen to a lot on YouTube, and when I was able to, Yahoo Radio.
Yes, Yahoo Radio.
That was pretty good. MSN Radio was pretty good too, but it's like they wouldn't let you mark songs. At least I don't remember. I mean, I believe that they wouldn't and stuff like that. But well, to each his own.
What are some of the video games you like playing?
I like Blur.
Blur's a great game.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I tried Batman Arkham Asylum, but a lot of it is very difficult, even on the easy level. I like just most any game. If it appeals to me, I'll play it.
Sure.
One game I can't stand is the Grand Theft Auto series. I don't know why. I mean, I tried. I was like, they put so much hype into this. Is it? Screw this. I'm not going to play it.
Right. Right.
At least Shoot Larry's pretty good.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
What else do you like to do in your downtime when you're not writing movie scripts? What are some of the things that you like to do?
Well, I'm planning to start go-kart racing. That would be a good one. I like to travel and see, places, stuff like that.
Okay. And now, going back to some celebrities, we've had some celebrity deaths in the past few years. Big one happened a while back, Michael Jackson. And you kind of have some opinions on that.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and tell us.
Well, as far as that, okay. I feel that as far as what he did, that did raise a lot of eyebrows with people. I mean, he didn't have a stable childhood because he was forced into music. Well, there were a lot of musicians or people that were forced into music that didn't do things like what he did, like allow little boys to stay in his house. I mean, who does that? I mean, I had a family member, whose father was in the military, like a contractor or something, and he had to travel, so he kind of had an unstable childhood in a sense, but he never did those things, like inviting boys to his house. And also, what kind of a person dangles a baby over a 4-story balcony? Did you know that the German police were ready to arrest Michael Jackson for that? But he wasn't arrested because he promised to leave the country. Proves that you can't get away with it.
Right.
And as far as that, settling out of court, if he knew the people were setting him up, why did he fall into it in the first place? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was a person that just wanted to have a childhood and stuff like that. But if somebody's going to set you up like that, I mean, you don't settle out of court if you know that you're innocent. You fight, which is what he did the second time. But if these people over here, were having a boy that was, quote, dying of cancer, why allow your kid, to be with somebody like that you don't even know, you're not related to, number one, and also, why would you allow them to be in the house with him unsupervised? I mean, if you were a parent, I mean, I assume they're saying, would you allow your kid to stay unsupervised with somebody? Hell no. Why did they do it to him? That's the thing that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it was certainly, the whole story was bizarre, and Michael Jackson, just kind of really lived a bizarre lifestyle. And
I wouldn't say it's that bizarre. I've known some people who had a bizarre lifestyle, but I agree with you.
What kinds of things have you seen, without naming specific people? What types of bizarre things are out there?
Well, like some people being nudists.
Sure.
That might be bizarre to some people, but that's not really all that bizarre when you look at reality TV. It shows nothing but strange. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you have parents that were reality stars, like Hogan Knows Best. I mean, Hulk Hogan lived a pretty strange life. Mm-hmm. I mean, but a lot of people lost respect for him, and some people lost respect for Jesse Ventura because of all these conspiracy theories, but Jesse Ventura wasn't the reality star. Hulk Hogan was. Now, why he wanted to do that, that kind of makes me think. Why would a man want to put his home life on TV? For what? He ruined his own marriage. He ruined not only that, but his own life in a sense. Mm-hmm. They said that he was very depressed when his wife left him, but ironically it was because he had an affair with somebody there. Otherwise he would have remained married. But maybe the marriage was doomed after the television show was done. Nobody knows.
Now, men who have affairs, you've been a bit about outspoken about that too. What are your thoughts on men who cheat on their wives?
Well, if they're in an open relationship or into the swingers lifestyle, it's not really cheating. But if a man cheats on his wife, there has to be something. I mean, the woman sometimes, is so set in her ways that subconsciously she might do something in a way that will say, okay, go for it, or something. It's kind of a touchy topic, but I would say if a woman doesn't want to communicate, if she's so demanding on a man, she drives the man away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the man wants to; it's he wants to get away from his wife because she's demanding, she's abusive, she's just becoming, a real bitch and just wants to ruin everything for everybody. But it takes two. I mean, if you're making the person miserable, you have to ask yourself, what did I do? Because usually men don't want to cheat, but sometimes the wives force them to by ruining everything in their lives.
Sure, absolutely. Sorry.
That's okay.
We can edit that out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as far as you're certainly somebody who is interested in lots of different media. Where do you think? Does the media overall have a bad influence on people? Do you think that there's some aspects of the media that are productive and beneficial towards people?
That's kind of a difficult question to answer because a lot of it is open to personal interpretation. There are some people out there that will say, yeah, the media shows everything, and there will be other people out there will say the media is very partisan to destroying lives and everything. It just depends on who's doing it and how they're doing it and how they choose to present it. A lot of times the media may edit things out that people might have said, just to make them look good or just to try to turn people against them. I remember like a lot of Michael Jackson fans, since, this was an example, they said that the media, hated him and turned tons of people against him. No, that isn't true. The media out there, can turn people against you, but it takes two. It takes one person to say it, but it takes another person to listen. So, in reality, the media, is just saying what needs to be said, but people are interpreting it in a different way. They choose to interpret it like, say, oh, that didn't happen and stuff like that. Well, how do you know? Were you there? Do you have information? No. A lot of people just want to put somebody up on a pedestal or something on a pedestal because they don't have anything else in their lives to look forward to. Or, they just want to feel like, oh, I belong to an elite group, a person might say. I mean, with the case of Michael Jackson, that's what a lot of people chose to believe. They wanted to believe, oh, we're Michael Jackson's fans. We're members of an elite group. Did you actually have ties to Michael? No, you didn't. Nobody had ties to him. Most of the fans who probably would have written me would believe that they had ties, but they didn't. They didn't meet Michael Jackson. They saw him up on stage. They got his autograph, but they didn't meet him like outside of a place. They didn't meet him in his house. So how do they know these things? They don't. Their only source, ironically, is the thing that they say that it's bad, the media.
Right. Okay.
So they want to believe that. I'd say, okay, you know what? You guys have the right to believe that, oh, he was so great. Well, did you really know him? Did you see him like in his everyday? No. The only source that they had, ironically, as I stated, was the media. Nothing more. Mm-hmm. End of story.
Okay. What's the one thing that makes you most angry?
A lot of things, like these Humane Society commercials. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that they're exposing those kinds of things, but maybe it's the way that they come across. It just turns people away from it. There are people out there that just, say that you shouldn't abuse, but look at what they're doing. I guess what turns me off the most is a do as I say, not as I do mentality, because it's like you have no idea how to think. Mm-hmm. That's what's wrong with this fucking world.
Okay. Well, on the other hand, what's the thing that makes you? Where do you get the most pleasure from?
getting laid, and let's see, laughing and just watching something positive.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, like say for example, somebody playing with their dog, and the dog is like running after a ball and then runs over. That's something nice. Taking a picture of a sunset. Nothing is greater than that. Or seeing a sunset or a sunrise, and then you take a picture of it. As a matter of fact, one sunset that I saw, I forgot to take a picture of. It was in Utah. When I was, I think in near Wendover, the sun was setting. Oh man, that was a sight I'll never forget. And also a moon rising in Wyoming when I left Nevada, coming back, and it's like wow. You know, you see these things, and it's like wow. You know, it just really inspires you.
Very cool. If there was, if you could meet 4 people and have dinner with 4 people from history, who would they be and why?
Well, one would be, let's see, Madeline Murray O'Hare.
Okay.
Because she was, although a lot of people disagreed with her, she would be somebody who defended the rights of atheists. You know, she was very outspoken, and she was, although some people wouldn't say that, in a way, kind of a voice for them. Let's see, model Dana Ham, because she seems to be a very nice person. I mean, I interviewed her on my old website. She was very, very nice. Let's see, Jenna Jameson would be pretty cool, and Rodney Dangerfield.
Okay. So 3 women and Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, why not?
You know how to pick them.
Yeah, I guess I know how to pick them.
So are you currently dating anybody?
No, not right now, no.
Okay.
I'm looking, but you know,
Yeah.
they say you find a date when you're not looking.
Right. So what's coming up next for you? What do you see yourself doing over the next couple of months?
Well, for one thing, getting my video edited, sending out my projects to Nevada, Wyoming. I know I did send something out to Wyoming. You know, they didn't charge me anything. Thank you very much. And just hearing from the film festivals, maybe getting out to a racetrack and start trying to amateur race. And just
Go-kart racing.
Go-kart racing,
Yeah.
amateur race car driving if they have any.
Yeah.
And just trying to get myself out there more.
Excellent. What are your goals?
What are my goals? Number one, to move to wherever it is that I need to move. Maybe buy a cat house. Let's see. Get that recording studio that I want started because I have a degree. I mean, not a degree, but a certificate from a community college near me. And let's see. And just, probably try to find that girl that I want.
The ever-ending quest for love.
Oh, love, lust, whatever you want to call it.
Where can people find out about you if they're interested in finding out about Victor Greywolf?
Well, I have a live journal for now. I mean, it'll probably still be up for some time. I have a Twitter.
Can you give us the addresses for those?
Twitter is twitter.com/howlinggraywolf, like my name is spelled GREYWOLF.
Okay.
My name, victorgreywolf.livejournal.com. I did have a website, but I couldn't maintain it. So it was expired and deleted in 2010. But pretty much anywhere. I mean, if people want to write me, they can write me at Victor Greywolf, P.O. Box 2172, Palatine, Palatine, Illinois 60078-2172.
Okay. And are you anywhere else on the web? An email address, social networking, or anything like that?
Just Twitter and Live Journal. I mean, I'm trying to look at a couple of others, but right now, nothing.
Okay. Well, what would you like to say to your followers out there, and anybody else who's listening to this right now?
Well, I hope you like what you know.
Okay.
And maybe if we ever meet, maybe one day, hey, we can have a Coca-Cola together or something.
Excellent. Well, that would be good. And let me tell you firsthand, folks, Victor Greywolf, certainly an interesting guy, very creative, very talented, and you have a feeling you're going to be seeing a lot from him over the next couple of years. Is there any chance we can? Is there anywhere we can see your films?
Well, if they get accepted into any film festivals there, I mean, I just only won 2 awards. I won an award in 2009 in Nevada where I did my first feature film, the Victor Greywolf one-man show. and it was just something similar to what it was like, a combination of Bill Cosby himself and Save It for the Stage, The Life of Riley. And it was a pretty interesting project. It was, matter of fact, my very first stand-up project that I ever videotaped that wasn't at a comedy club that I couldn't send out. I mean, I could send this one out, and I did. And it was a pretty interesting project overall. Recorded it in a library, recorded it in a school in Chicago, and I recorded it again in the library. I mean, I shot a lot of things for a day in the life, and I'm pretty happy about that. As a matter of fact, the one-man show won the highest award in the Nevada Film Festival, the Platinum Reel Award.
Excellent. Very cool. And are we going to be able to see? Can we see that anywhere? Is it on YouTube? Is there any?
No, it's not on YouTube.
Okay.
I'm planning to. I think I found a couple of places that I can premiere it.
Mm-hmm.
One is in Morton Grove or Downers Grove. I looked it up recently, and another one is on as in Chicago. So, yeah, I mean, it's been rejected from almost every film festival. So, unfortunately, for those that wanted to see it outside, I'm sorry to say you couldn't. But you never know. Maybe one day a film festival might say, "Hey, I actually like this."
All right, cool. Well, we're looking forward to that. Anything else you want to wrap up with by saying on our podcast today?
Well, I like to say, in a way, I owe you, because if I hadn't met you, I might have become you.
Great words from a great guy, Victor Greywolf. Well, Victor, thanks for being here today.
It was a pleasure.
We learned a lot, and definitely come back and check in with us again sometime.
Love to.
All right, thanks a lot, Victor Greywolf.
Bye, and fuck you all.
All right. I think that came out.